Okay, I assume this is a question for Katariina, since this is about antibiotic resistance. Yes, so the question is, do antibiotic-resistant bacteria in our gut mean that taking antibiotic therapy for, let's say, a throat infection or worse, unnecessarily taking antibiotics for a cold, could result in overgrowth of antibiotic-resistant microbes, while the other ones get wiped out, which in turn could lead to development of gut-related diseases? And there's a second question that would taking supportive probiotics like Saccharomyces boulardii help prevent such diseases? Have you looked at that connection or plan to look at it in the future? And let's start with those. Question actually continues and I cannot see the rest of it. But so yeah, first question, is it bad to take many antibiotics and could this increase having gut-related diseases, and are probiotics helpful?
The first question, yes, if you have antibiotic-resistant bacteria in your gut and you take an antibiotic that is targeting those specific antibiotics, yes, it will cause an overgrowth of that resistant bacteria. And then the balance of the microbes in your gut get kind of tilted in the wrong direction. However, typically this reverses, not completely, but in summary, it's good to always avoid unnecessary antibiotics, but the person telling what is unnecessary is your doctor. But you can, if you want to kind of promote antibiotic stewardship and avoid unnecessary adverse health outcomes related to antibiotics, you can ask your doctor, can I wait for 2 days? Can I wait for 1 day? What is the protocol for this? Or should I take the antibiotic immediately? The second question about probiotics, we know that if you have a lot of bifidobacteria in your gut, that tends to kind of fight with the antibiotic-resistant bacteria and take some space out of them. However, in long term, in adults, I don't think probiotics really are the solution for this, because the probiotic products we have, they're not really bacteria that you should have a lot in the adult gut. They're mostly things that you find in babies. So I don't think the probiotics are really the choice for this. There's still a lot of mixed kind of signals whether probiotics are good to take when you have antibiotics or not. So unless your doctor recommends, I don't recommend buying them yourself.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the last question, we are getting to quite esoteric microbiology fields here, is about maybe combining these probiotics, or no, sorry, combining the antibiotic therapy that you're taking with phage therapy. So whether phages are something that could be useful here for dealing with our resistant
phages,
issues.
They are viruses that attack bacteria. So that's one way we could kill the bacteria in addition to with antibiotics. It's quite difficult to formulate commercially viable phage concoctions that could fight antibiotic-resistant bacteria because they're quite strain and case specific. So for each patient, you would need to kind of formulate and develop this phage cocktail individually. So this is not something that's going to be, something you can buy from the pharmacy. That's going to be in standard use. But there are cases where someone is about to die of an antibiotic-resistant infection in a hospital that researchers have come up and said, we have this phage cocktail, we can try this to save the patient. And it has been quite successful in these individual cases. But I think for the near future, it's going to be something that's not in very wide use, but it's very effective if you have one that works.
Yes, and I am reading this question in more detail again, and this was also partly thought to be in connection to situations where you already have antibiotic-resistant bacteria in you and trying to eliminate them, and I guess that is not something we would be doing anytime in the future, because then you are eliminating before you have an issue, and that would be tricky.
Yes, there are ways that you could target, but they're more sort of scientifically interesting than something that I would see be very commonly used.
Yes, thank you. Very in-depth questions of microbiology to get things started with. Are there any questions from the audience here to any of our speakers? Yes, Lea.
Thanks. Yeah, for Elisa, regarding the emotions in learning, can you comment on maybe any differences in the emotional experience in learning for example, school children versus university students versus, I think, a particular interest to many in the room, like graduate research and graduate education?
Thank you. I can comment, but I haven't done research on this specific topic. But I would say this question comes down to the emotion regulation skills that we have. So in general, it's easy to believe that like small kids, their emotion regulation is not that strong as then when we grow up. So this comes back to the meta effects that I told you. So probably at this stage already, we all here kind of already know that when something feels confusing or frustrating, we kind of know that now we're onto something big, or now we're learning something, and this is worth all the effort. Whereas the smaller kids don't necessarily have those skills yet. So maybe that's the trend there. So there are some skills that we should teach to the kids, that how to approach your feelings.
Thank you. Other audience questions, online questions? While you think I can come up with something. Okay, no, Veera has something. Go ahead.
Hi, I would like to ask Olli about the graph that was very interesting comparison between men and women. When you say that the reason for why women use more healthcare services when they're about below 50 is probably related to childbirth. But I was thinking, could it also be related to that women do a lot more preventive healthcare checkups and go to a doctor a lot easier or on a lower threshold than men do? And that also shows up then when above 50, that then actually men then use a lot more of the healthcare services.
Definitely. Yeah, shortly put, definitely. And there's also much more regular checkups in the sense of that women are recommended to see gynecologist from time to time, and I think some men don't necessarily go to dentist even from time to time, and yeah, there's lots of these behavioral situations, and we see in the mortality also that men are taking much more risks when they are younger, and I think throughout their lives. That's possibly due to hormones, and yes. And then we know that cardiovascular health of men is difficult to show that cardiovascular health of men is worse than women, but women's. But yeah, I think when you compare people that are of the same age, people have higher risk for develop cardiovascular problems in a much more younger age. We had one study where it was we showed that the risk of stroke between men and women is nowadays quite similar to each other. It used to be that women have higher rates of stroke risk when compared to men. Not sure where this comes from. Is it that we don't identify cardiovascular problems for women so easily or something? So there might also be this under-treatment also, that we don't take women's health concerns such seriously than men's. Complicated. Yeah.
Thank you. We have another question. a follow-up? Yes, please.
On the same graph, you could see that there was a dip near the very oldest age groups. Is that coming from maybe like survivor bias, like the folks that are reaching the age of 90 and above have not already died of something else?
Yes, yes, it definitely is that. If we die of age 70, 75, it's probably due to cancer. And it's something that is really expensive in hospital care. Then around 85-year-olds, it's cardiovascular diseases, which is more distributed between hospitals and health centers and social care. And then for over 90-year-olds, there's much of social care, and the usual cause of death is actually dementia.
All right, some very big topics there to talk about. All right, who is the next question for?
I have a question for Robert. So a lot of medicinal, let's call them materials, include those carbohydrate-derived molecules, and those are very difficult to synthesize, of course, as you said. What's the role of naturally derived, let's say, carbohydrates? So, I mean, nature is very good at making them. So do we utilize those, or is it all synthesis from basically ground up in the industry?
Yeah, that's pretty much a case by case. There are, of course, in nature where they have attached already some carbohydrate. And there are, but usually also when you add carbohydrates, you have so many OH groups, they also dissolve quite easily in water, change properties. So maybe isolating them is not as easy as the compounds without the carbohydrates attached. So I would say it quite often dependent it's a lot of a case by case, which actually works and what actually don't work.
Thanks.
All right. If I can put my question in here, I would like to ask each one of you in turn, since we are having an English language day and kind of bringing up the international context in that way, can you tell a little bit about whether doing your research in Finland has some specific particularities to it? Is there anything different about doing your research in your field in a Finnish context? I know we got a little bit already from Katariina about how there's good registry data, for example, but in everyone's work, is there something that makes it different to do your research in Finland? Robert can go first since you were already online.
Okay. I would say that no, because chemistry is very sort of international. We use the same language. So to me, no, I don't find it that would be any difference if we do it in Finland or somewhere else.
Equally international. We don't have, for example, some infrastructure that is specialized in Finland or some topic specialty that is very Finnish or anything like this? No.
I sort of involved in some projects where we actually focus on a lot of lignin that you can find in wood together with cellulose and hemicellulose and how to utilize that. That is very Nordic. It's like Sweden and Finland that we try to find how to utilize that. So that I would say is maybe the most when it comes to what we do in our lab.
Okay, but that is already quite interesting. So Elisa, do you have anything in the school world, sort of Finnish specific?
Yes. Well, I'm doing quite a lot of collaboration with the US colleagues and like talking about the emotional landscape and we do see this difference on whenever you ask people about how they feel or anything about their experiences, we do see this, like people tend to give these socially desirable answers. So there's always some, you cannot be totally objective on what people are answering. So we do see that there's some difference on emotions, on how students they do have this view of what do they want me to answer. Should I be enjoying this, or is it okay to be bored or whatever? So we do see some differences. And then actually one very interesting issue concerning emotion research is the translations. This is something I've been thinking a lot because we of course have our questionnaires in Finnish and then I'm publishing my research in English. So how do I translate all the emotions to English? And they are not one-to-one. Of course, they do have a bit different tone to them. And now I'm working also with the Taiwanese colleague from the Asian context, and we also had this discussion whether emotions translate well, and she was also saying no, totally not. So that gives some extra spice to our research, definitely.
Very interesting, and also crossing into kind of linguistics even here. So, yes. All right, so Katariina, you already talked a little bit about this. Do you have anything to add in your context? How is Finland specific or doing research in Finland?
Well, I think for someone who works with bioinformatics, we have quite a long tradition of both on the kind of wet lab side of producing DNA sequence data. And then we have really nice supercomputers that are free to use, which is like winning a lottery if you're into bioinformatics. So I think that's quite unique for us Finns. But otherwise, Finland is one of the lowest antibiotic resistance countries in the world. So that's quite specific. But for whatever reason, like in other Nordic countries, we're really interested in antibiotic resistance. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I'm sure having the good research infrastructure helps that we want to tackle a global issue, even though it's not a local issue so strongly, but yeah. Okay, and yeah, Olli, you also mentioned a little bit on sort of the Nordic context, but anything specific in your research?
Obviously, most countries don't have this national data. Even the US, they have Medicare and Medicaid patients that they can extensively research, but that's a selection. That's not the whole population. In some countries, I've been to Italy and they mentioned that in city X, they don't know how many people are in care homes. In some countries, they don't know how many people have diabetes. So there's the state of registries and state of information on national level is really different. Then there's of course that care systems are different. What is a hospital? In Finland, it's quite clear to us that there are patients in beds and specialties, and eye clinic might be a hospital in some places. So it's a little bit different also. And we're a high-income country where the medical care has developed into such state that we actually have a problem with dementia compared to some countries which are still struggling with different issues.
Thank you. Any further questions online? Not that I see. More questions from the room.
Can I also ask?
You can obviously you can also ask questions from each other, please.
Yes, I was interested in this, like making mistakes is crucial for learning. I sort of intuitively told my supervisees that, yes, you made a mistake. You have to make that mistake at least once for you to learn. If you get it right by accident, then you don't learn, and then you have to make the mistake eventually. And I'm like, they're like golden nuggets or diamonds, like, yeah, you made a mistake. So as an expert, is this kind of framing mistakes as an opportunity to learn that should almost be celebrated good? Or should there be this like agony with making mistakes?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes and no. I think mistakes can be like There's not just one sort of mistakes, and definitely many mistakes are something that you can learn from, and so it's okay to celebrate them even. But then again, if you think about teaching, how should you plan your teaching? I'm not sure if it's wise thing to like actually design some mistakes so that you make sure that students make mistakes. But I think we all can agree that when you're like on the edge of your abilities, you tend to make more mistakes. So if you're just dealing with all the easy stuff, you never make any mistakes, but you don't learn either. So that's one point of view that I think they are inevitable once you're like dealing with something difficult, learning something new. And then like the other perspective is that it seems that whatever we do, there are these mistakes. So it's not even something that we really have to think about, like if we should design in our teaching some mistakes or not, but they will be there anyways. And if there are mistakes, then teachers should have some tools to like deal with those mistake situations and students' emotions and feelings in those situations.
So for learning, should I feel like agony of making the mistake, or should I try to kind of soften the agony of the supervisees?
Yes.
Yes.
Plan B is the way to go.
So you don't need to feel horrible after making a mistake to produce learning.
Definitely not.
Yes.
Definitely not. Yeah.
I guess we can all feel relieved that we're not supposed to make our students feel bad. So we have maybe follow-up questions, several, or Olli, you can go first.
Yeah, I was thinking, does easy question, does remote teaching or people using AI to generate their essays, do you think that this does not enable them to feel emotions related to the, or?
Interesting question. I'm not sure if I'm any better to answer this than any of you, but maybe yes. I think generative AI gives us the opportunity to take the easy way out in many occasions, so we don't have to put so much effort. We don't even make the first mistake to learn from, but we just get the correct answer immediately. And what was the question? Did I answer it?
Yeah, I was also thinking remote teaching. Do you see the emotions of students?
Well, not as well, of course. And I think also like talking about the mistakes, for example, as a teacher, I don't necessarily see my students if they make mistakes. It just happens somewhere there. And students don't, I don't teach, for example, chemistry lab remotely. I hope no one does. But so there are, of course, different types of mistakes or failures in different fields. But I think the students, if they are participating remotely, they are more hesitant to say if they are struggling with something. They just close their videos and then like everything's fine. But I don't get anything here. So of course it disrupts the interaction, for sure.
Did we have other questions on this?
Yeah, this is not a direct follow-up, but it's still on the emotions. So if I understood and remember correctly, one of your studies found that if the student is motivated and interested, that has a positive effect on learning outcomes, but it has to be maybe innate and already there before the actual learning situation happens. So what should we do about that as teachers? Because normally you don't meet the student when they're 10 and you can instill in them some sort of interest towards science, and you get them in the classroom when they're already adults and they may be more or less interested in the topic that you're trying to teach them. And from that, what you said, it almost seems like you shouldn't even try to make them interested because it's not going to work.
Thank you for asking, because that's not what I wanted to say. So I'll try to clarify. I wouldn't use the word innate. I don't think anyone, when they are small kids, I don't think they are interested on chemistry or has motivations towards like health economics or whatever. At least my kids weren't when they were babies. So of course there's a lot we can do to promote students' interest and motivation. And if you think about like your journey until here, I'm sure you can also recognize those moments that you weren't actually interested or motivated at all about something, but once you learned something about it, then you became interested and found the motivation. So, of course, you cannot even be interested on something you never heard about. So that's something we have to accept, that you first have to learn something and then you can build the motivation and interest. What I was trying to say in my presentation is that, of course, if you are already interested and motivated, you have this like personal disposition to be interested in chemistry or motivation, then that, of course, shows in your learning and your doing. You already come into the classroom full of enthusiasm, and then you start learning and everything goes smoothly, or at least more smoothly than for some others, maybe. So there is this like personal layer to it. But of course, that's also something that we can develop over time.
Okay, Olli, is this also for Elisa? Or?
Yeah, this is a small comment. Yeah, nobody is interested in health economics in Finland when they start their bachelor's, because there's only master's studies available. Yeah. So usually people they might come from nursing or pharmacy or engineering or economics, and then start studying when they have found this fantastic field of study.
Exactly.
All right, we don't have a ton of time left. I would highlight that to make these young people interested in our sciences, we do have the excellent Meet a Researcher service, through which we visit schools and we tell them things that will make them excited. So if there are other questions for the panel, still here, one more. Because I have a wrap-up question in mind, but let's take this first.
I guess I could ask maybe for Robert. I know that this sort of like carbohydrates that are on the cell surface are not just for like bacteria and things like that. They're also in the human body. So and like cell signaling in the human body, it's involved with that. Are there like diseases that can happen if you have some problems with the carbohydrate generation in the human body also?
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a lot of research going into understanding these carbohydrates and their exact role, what they have to do with different diseases. Not all of them have fully been understood. They are so complex, and how they interact with these different receptors and all of that is a ongoing study. Yeah, so short answer, yes, but it's very, very difficult.
All right. Thank you for all the questions. So I was in my head thinking of the previous points and nobody's interested in health economics. So if we could maybe wrap this up with another round of all the speakers where you can convince us, tell us a bit of an example of what in your field is really cool or really exciting or really interesting. Like a little bit of a pitch. So those young people who are maybe not so interested, why should they be interested? What is really cool right now in what you're studying? So let's start from the last speaker first. So Olli, you can start. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but like, you know, sort of something cool.
It's like, it's difficult when you're talking of aging and not be a harbinger of doom, like, and state some big numbers, but potentially our field can find out really unintuitive and yet really cost-effective ways of providing care in some setting, and we might get much more money to focus on everything else. Really interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's important. So
Yeah.
yes, we should be. We should be interested. Obviously, we are all aging, so this is an issue that touches every single one of us. All right, Katariina, you have what is cool?
Well, I think antibiotic resistance is kind of a problem that is not huge yet, but there are predictions that it might kill even as much as cancer in the future, and then basically it would go back to the dark ages where if you have a cough, then it's like, oh, bye, nice to meet you. So that's very important, but it's not very exciting. But then on the kind of nerdy side, we're in a fantastic time where the algorithms and computers and technologies are advancing. So we know just the tip of the iceberg about microbiomes in general. So I think that the time is really exciting. We have a lot that we can do now. There's a lot of data to dig through. And I like data and computers, and there might be someone else who likes that too, and microbiology is a great way to jump into that.
Yes, I fully agree with all of this, but I'm quite biased. So Elisa, I think your topic was maybe the most sort of easy to approach popular out of this, but do you have anything sort of to add?
Yes, I would like to add, well, my topic was emotions and learning, but I only talked about emotions. So what I actually find very interesting at the moment is learning. So what is learning even, and what do we mean by learning? How should learning look like today, especially in the era of AI? What should we learn? And because it's obvious that it's not the same things as students had to learn like 50 years ago, but still we need to learn something. So hold this learning discussion, I think it's very interesting at the moment.
Very good to highlight also. All right, and then we have Robert. You already quite convinced us that carbs are important and good to look at, but anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, sort of. We are still discovering quite a lot of new things, and you can be sort of the first one in the world to know that something is going on, as I were with my studies, and become like an expert and could potentially change the field and add new things that has to be accounted for like when developing vaccines, for example.
Thank you. Excellent. I think that is a very general comment for all of us in science, why science is exciting. We can be the first to discover something that nobody else knows yet. And I think that is a very good thought to wrap up on. Thank you again to all the speakers. Thank you to the audience. And now we will have a coffee break.